Hi everyone, I'm Delia Saenz, Vice President for Inclusion at Bennington College. I'm sharing herewith a few closing statements on behalf of all who made possible the Reflect, Rebuild, and Rise conference. In many ways, I have so much to say in celebration of the first ever student-led diversity conference at Bennington College, and yet I'm also at a loss for words. As we find ourselves in the present moment, dealing with the global atrocities associated with the pandemic and the exacerbation of racial injustices that have too long characterized our human histories and societies. The simultaneous embrace of celebration and distress is difficult to embody. I ask humbly that you allow me to first speak to the work of our student leaders and the Office of Diversity and Inclusion, and allow for space for the recognition and commendation that is apropos to the conference. Then I will turn to the broader context and make a few remarks about the challenges that we all face with the broadening of our lens. The Reflect, Rebuild, and Rise conference had multiple goals. We were interested in identifying areas of exclusion on our campus in the service of remedy. Each of the student leaders, like others in our community, knows full well the ideals of our college and the concomitant guiding principles of access and shared governance. And we understand that Bennington has work to do in the practice of these ideals. So promoting awareness around exclusion was a basic aspiration of the conference. Understanding of the lived experiences of those who have been marginalized was another basic goal. Many of us, students, staff, faculty, and alumni have experienced growth, happiness, recognition for our contributions and successes as a function of our Bennington identity. Let us understand that these are all good outcomes that should accrue to all members, and that it is not okay if some of us are marginalized. It is not okay if we ourselves engage in thoughtless or unintentional, let alone intentional slights or attacks on the basis of difference. And it is not okay if our institutional practices meet the needs of some, but not of others. Mostly, it is not okay to ignore, explain away, or justify differential treatment simply because we are not affected directly by the negative aspect of these disparities. Across the different sessions, you were provided opportunities to learn about microaggression, privilege, invisibility, injustice, bias, dominance in class, disability, and the need and desire for diversification of our curriculum and indeed all our intellectual and creative projects. We asked you to be partners in learning about the full range of experiences, with a focus on those that are suboptimal and that fail to capture the best of Bennington's progressive model of education and participatory engagement. Building awareness and understanding of exclusion were inherent in the Reflect part of our conference theme. The next level of our conference theme, Rebuild, was in the service of moving us in a better direction. We believe strongly in promoting a model that embodies inclusion in everyday practice, in scholarship and creativity, in the composition of our team, and in the equitable treatment of all. We were optimistic that your sense of community would inspire you to respond, to think about the role you have played or can play in advancing inclusion, and a sense of belonging for all of us. How do we respond as individuals and as members of the different college units to our growing awareness and understanding of exclusion? How do we rebuild? How do we make Bennington an authentic home for the diversity that comprises the full human tapestry? How do we create inclusive practice that allows our individual and collective strengths to thrive and expand well beyond our campus borders? The student leaders offered a few suggestions: expansion of things already in place that are working well, and addition of new approaches for improving what we do. But we made no claim of omniscience. In fact, we sought out your wisdom, your creativity, your thoughts and ideas. We thank you sincerely for your engagement over the past several weeks and for sending us your feedback. We believe that rebuilding is an ongoing activity, one that needs your participation, indeed, the participation of us all. This is not easy work. It requires a self-examination of our beliefs, our intentions, and our behaviors. We ask of our students very directly through the plan process to make a commitment to an examined life, to practice self-reflection, and to take an inquiry-based approach to addressing unsolved challenges or pre-existing conceptualizations. Are we all prepared to do the same? In my role as a staff member or a faculty, or even just a lifelong learner, am I willing to question if there is a better way? Rebuilding requires dismantling of the old and creation of new patterns. It means letting go of the familiar, of the privilege, of the routine, and the safe. It also means being open to words that may sting around the mistakes that we commit or that we have justified repeatedly. Rebuilding means resisting the temptation to shrink back and cry foul when we hear that our own actions or words have fallen short. It means creating a margin for correction, not hiding behind fragility. And it also means listening to truths that might be painful. The final theme of our conference was Rise. How do we make a commitment to advancing inclusion to a level of substance and meaning? How do we meet Bennington's original objective to provide access to those who might otherwise be excluded? And how do we do so in a contemporaneously relevant way? How do we take what we've learned and use it to grow? The conference was in no way meant to be a static event. It was meant to be an open invitation to you, an invitation to do the personal work of building awareness and understanding, an invitation to respond by way of reflection and action, of incorporating the intrapersonal work with collective action. The first ever diversity conference at Bennington remains an invitation to engage in dialogue with others in our community. We're not asking you to do anything that the conference crew was not willing to undertake. In fact, over the past several weeks, we've heard concerns around topics or groups that were not fully represented in our sessions. We were called to task when the content appeared to reflect generalizations that might be too broad. We were even asked to remove details that might identify a specific wrongdoer. And we responded We responded by making changes that were within our power, and most importantly, by prioritizing the overarching goal of inclusion. Did we achieve perfection? Who can? But what we did was model an openness to communication, an orientation towards cooperation, and a willingness to consider other perspectives and new options. We believe these practices will serve us well and allow us to rise. As we continue to review the data from the reflection forums you've submitted, we will continue to evolve our inclusion strategies. I will share that the biggest concern you've identified to date is the need to process the content more fully, something that would have naturally transpired in a live delivery. As I've noted before, student leaders were amazing in their ability to pivot from the original design of live to remote format. I'm so proud of them for their final delivery, and you should be too. Please know that in response to your request, we will find a way to schedule discussion sessions in the near future. There's a lot to process in the various conference sessions, and we might think about scheduling virtual sessions where we invite open participation from members of the community. As well, however, we would like to encourage each unit or area to host in-house learning and discussion sessions. Such smaller groups would allow for deeper dives into the content, and this could be quite powerful. It would be a true sign of commitment to openness and cooperation, and it would start a dialogue among colleagues with whom you actually create daily norms. We also appreciate other recommendations that have come in, including the creation of a diversity and inclusion advisory board with representation from students, staff, and faculty. Our intent is to share fully the compilation of evaluations, recommendations, and commentary for the conference. Especially as we transition to new leadership at the college, these recommendations come at an opportune time. We need to chart Bennington's inclusive future together as a collective of diverse voices. Remember, this is the start of a conversation, not the culmination of a one-time event. We look forward to rising together, and we hope you do too. Okay, at this point, we had planned on sharing a victory dance, an expression of celebration that included joyful music and joyful movement. However, the national and global climates serve to dampen this inclination. All I have are a few words to broaden the lens beyond our campus. One thing I will say is that the lessons and goals that we engage through the Diversity Conference have broader applicability. This moment of widespread disruption compels us to seek out awareness and understanding of injustice across broad domains: education, health, political empowerment, housing, incarceration, food security, employment, environmental degradation, and more. We also can recognize that these issues cut across multiple dimensions of identity differences and their intersections, including, of course, but not limited to, race, ethnicity, class, sexual orientation, religion, nationality, immigrant status, and gender. What will you do to educate yourself and your loved ones about the disparities that exist as a function of difference and their causes? Our graduating student leaders engaged this journey through their advanced work and created a foundation for pursuit of awareness and remedy going forward. I believe we are all called and obligated to rebuild, to change systems of discrimination and agents of oppression at every level, including the self. What patterns can you resolve to abandon or to adopt? What windows do we each need to peer through in an effort to understand the experiences of others? What mirrors do we need to gaze into so that we can see who we are and how we can best leverage our privilege to make change in our respective ambits? It is said that the journey of 1,000 miles begins with but a single step, as per the wisdom of the Chinese philosopher Lao Tzu. Perhaps today, we can each take a single step towards building equity and inclusion. And perhaps going forward, we can each increase the previous day's goal by one additional step. In short order, our collective efforts can yield a significant reset. We can make those daily steps count. We can learn, donate, vote, protest, demand accountability of ourselves and others. We can question, shout, unite, protect the vulnerable, insist on justice, and step up to leadership. We can even correct past mistakes. The present moment demands action, and action must extend from oneself to the interpersonal, institutional, and societal levels. Every single day provides a new opportunity to rise. So use every day, per Martin Luther King Jr., to rise above the narrow confines of individualistic concerns to the broader concerns of all humanity. Start living and creating spaces that are inclusive, that are fair, and that are just. Thank you for your time, for your effort, and for caring about community. After all, we're all in this together. Thank you.